Everyone's required to pay the fare if you didn't realize.
Do you work for MTA?
First off,
Do you work for MTA?
of course not, but this
Do you
is
get
the
paid extra
fare.
money to do that?
Huh?
Huh? Do you get paid extra money to do that?
Of course not.
Were you the one that opened the door?
Of course not.
Of course not. So mind your fucking business next time. Okay?
All right.
All right. Stupid ass nigga.
Or you can pay the fucking fare. You damn bully. Damn.
So guys, unfortunately I can't appear on camera right now, and I just have to do a quick video because my brother's gonna be, coming home in just a couple of minutes. But I want to do a black fatigue video, and I want to talk about how in the black community, I know that there's an issue of, some black people, but not all black people, being rude to people with mental illness. And there's a couple of incidents, like there's this video online of this person like with autism, and what happens is that in New York City, there's like a toll that you have to pay in order to ride the subway. But what a lot of people will do is that they will push on a door, an emergency exit door, to not pay the toll. And sometimes it can be $1 or $2. And another issue with that is sometimes you can buy a ticket or you can use your credit card or whatever, and sometimes the machine doesn't work or scan, and then you hold people up, and then there's people behind you trying to push on you to go through it. So sometimes it's very aggravating, and sometimes people try to skip the fare because they don't want to go through that process of, okay, I want to be honest, Abe, really. I want to be honest and take up all the time that I need to go through a broken subway payment booth. But in a video that I was watching, there was this guy with mental illness, and he kind of had a thing about monitoring people who would go through it and saying, hey, you didn't pay. And what happened was there's this black woman who was like, you know what, okay, mind your fucking business. And that was just like not right, really. You should have said, you should mind your business, because sometimes people can retaliate on you because you're getting in their business, or I see that you might have some mental health issues, but you have to learn to mind your business, because some people can, take offense, really. People do good and bad, but sometimes you shouldn't be monitoring people. Like saying that in a very polite way, not like a very, very harsh way. So I kind of understand that, obviously, some people in the black community are just naturally having that ghetto, I gotta be rough, I gotta be mean, I gotta be harsh type of demeanor, really, because that does come in the black community, but also in a lot of urban city communities, oh, well, I gotta show my toughness, really. There's also a thing about not being patient. But I also understand too that's like American culture, really, where there are just some people who are just not patient. And also in the black community, this is also very true, that sometimes the way a lot of black people were disciplined growing up is that sometimes you may have a harsh father or mother, really. There's always videos that talk about how, one issue of the black community is verbal abuse, really. So, or verbal abuse. And you see parents cursing at their kids, or mothers cursing at their daughters and their boys, really. Or I know I was watching this video of this kid, and he was misbehaving in school, so his dad bought him an Xbox for his birthday, unwrapped the Xbox and destroy it. But he was like, nigga, you doing this, nigga, I'm spending all this money, nigga, really. So it can kind of turn children into adults that are okay, I'm going to be loud, rude, disrespectful. And then there's also media, you look at a lot of movies with black women, and black women are usually loud, rude, disrespectful, having no patience, hurting feelings, and unapologetic. And also that's also true when you look at a lot of black men in media, about being loud, violent, rude, disrespectful, picking fights, not letting things go, really. The media portrays a lot of African Americans as, impatient, violent, rude, disrespectful, and other things like that. But sometimes people imitate social media. Um, and then again, then people kind of watch this video and say, well, that's true. Black women are rude, or black women have no class, or black women can't stop the foul language, really. Again, when again, that's not all black people, but obviously when people perpetuate stereotypes, um, you know, it adds to stereotypes, really. I also remember like a few years ago, I went to an all elite wrestling show in Philadelphia, and what happened was like the day after that, I went to like a 7-Eleven, and what happened was that there was this homeless woman that was at the counter, and what happened was she was expecting me and other people when we were at the counter paying with cash to be like, hey, I need some of that money or whatever, really. And she called me a retard. And I'm not going to say who, but somebody called her a fucking nigger because of how she was treating me. Like, she like saw that smile a lot. She was calling me a fucking retard. And then somebody called her a fucking nigger because she was just adding up to the stereotypes. She was a dark black woman. She had an attitude. She was picking on mentally ill people. Because, I was diagnosed with autism. Sometimes I smile a little too much or a little awkward. Or sometimes I'm a little giddy. And just to put her in her place, really. And then she's also a black woman, um, standing right by a counter, trying to panhandle and be loud and rude, really. And it adds to the stereotypes of, black people are lazy, black people are rude, black people are impatient, black people want to hustle, black people are combative, black people don't want to get out and work, or black people don't want to go to a homeless program that helps them get a job, really. Like, she just kind of perpetuates a lot of black stereotypes. But when that person said that to her, I was like, okay, well, I'm kind of happy, because it goes to what some people say about black people. Like, sometimes maybe they need to be called the N-word just to kind of coach them out of that ghetto gangbanger attitude, really. But I thought about it a little bit more, and I was like, no, that's not right, really. Because obviously, you look at Donald Trump, you don't call white people crackers for, nobody calls Donald Trump a cracker for all the bad things he's doing as a president. Oh, you look at how there's a lot of anti-ICE protests, and there's a lot of white kids, or there's a lot of videos of white kids walking out of school, or a lot of teachers are saying, let's protest ICE. And one of the reasons why they do that is so that way they're not teaching, they're sitting in their office with a coffee, or they're walking out with kids. So that way they're not actually teaching them anything except the First Amendment, really. What's gonna matter more to kids? Learning accounting, taking like cooking classes in high school, taking English classes, or going out and protesting. Like, and then it adds that stereotype of, oh well, when white kids or other groups of people are actually going outside and are actually, instead of like, don't value education, they value protesting and saying what they got to say, really. But again, we don't call white people crackers for doing that, really. The same way we shouldn't call black people niggers when they act indignant or whatever, really. But yeah, it's true that definitely in the black community, there is an issue of being rude, of being disrespectful, of being combative, and also picking on people who are mentally ill and other things like that, really. And I've kind of dissected that probably part of it comes from, an attitude of, or a culture of saying, okay, well, maybe black women especially, there's a lot of depiction of black women being rude, mean, hurting feelings, authoritative, and other things like that. And sometimes people imitate the stereotypes they see on television of, okay, well, since I see people be rude and nasty, I gotta be rude and nasty, or I gotta hurt feelings, or I gotta raise my children in a way where I'm hurting their feelings or verbally abusing them. And if they have mental illness, or people in real life have a mental illness, I gotta be disrespectful back. But I will say, as a person who's mixed race, part black, that grew up in a lot of white communities, there's a lot of white people who manipulate mentally ill people. There's a lot of white people who make fools out of mentally ill people. There's a lot of white people who are racist against mentally ill people because they know they can get away with it. And I've definitely dealt with that when I went to college, and I had a bunch of white Jewish professors, and through my life, really, like, because white people can be very nasty as well. But in general, if you know that someone has a mental illness or they're a little awkward, you don't need to be calling them a retard. You don't need to be putting them down. You don't need to be hurting feelings and other shit like that. Show respect, really, because nobody would like it if I was disrespecting people's relatives as well, really. And if you're rude and nasty to a person with a mental illness, what would happen if you have a mom or a dad and they are in the hospital, and I was like saying, you know what, and they're yelling and screaming because they have dementia or whatever. I'm like, shut the fuck up, or you sound like a retard, or what, they really need to beat them with a headrest or whatever to get them to be quiet, really. It's the same exact thing, really. You know what? If you want to speak down to people with mental health issues, it really is a depiction of a lack of class and patience, and that ghetto stereotype of black people having an issue of being just nasty and rude and impolite, really.